iPhone 17 Pro Max versus iPhone 16 Pro Max. Should you upgrade? That is the aim of today's video. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology, and today we're going to talk about the iPhone 17 Pro Max versus the iPhone 16 Pro Max of last year and help you decide if I thought this was worth the upgrade. As somebody who did use this for the majority of the previous year as my main Max phone, I did decide to go ahead and pick this up, of course, to do reviews on it, but I want to talk about if I was not doing reviews, would this upgrade feel worth it? And so far, I gotta say it does, but there's a lot of reasons why. We'll continue to talk about them in this video. Talking first about price though, there is no real differences. Apple did keep the price the same, which is good because you do get upgrades at the same price point. But at the same time, the Max does have a higher storage tier that will get this thing up to $2,000. So I think Apple's starting to get you a little bit used to higher priced iPhones, as the folding iPhone is likely to launch next year in 2026. But I want to move on to just say that the pricing structure, not really that different. So either way you went was about the same. However, if you buy an iPhone 16 Pro Max now, if you're looking at this video to see if this is still worth it, of course you'll find this cheaper, and it is pretty much mostly the same phone in a lot of areas, but not exactly. Let's talk first about the body and the build, the design. I have to state, after a couple of weeks, I do still think the iPhone 16 Pro Max is a better looking phone. It's simply cleaner. It has titanium edges, and while it does look kind of the same as the previous years and it doesn't stand out as much as the Cosmic Orange, generally to me it looks like a little bit more of a premium phone. This is mostly due to the titanium rails on this device. However, I have been enjoying the Cosmic Orange iPhone 17 Pro Max because it just stands out as something different we haven't seen in several years. I'm not such a fan of the camera hump here, but at the same time, the two-tone design does mix it up. And then if you go over here and you kind of like hold the phone on the front, it kind of looks the same as the 16 Pro Max, but what I noticed is this phone just generally feels a little bit smoother on the corners in the hand. It just feels, to me, it's just like a smoother feel to it. Well, it is a little bit heavier and more of a brick. This aluminum chassis does allow this phone to feel rather smooth on the back. Overall, though, I'm not a fan of this right here at the top. And generally, I don't think it's a better looking phone than the iPhone 16 Pro Max, but I do prefer its function over the aesthetics, though. I'll talk more about what I mean about that as we go forward. Generally, though, this weighs a little bit more than the iPhone 16 Pro Max. It does have a little bit better durability on that front glass, though. It's Ceramic Shield 2 glass, so that is going to be slightly better for drop protection. But at the same time, you know, you can put screen protectors on either of them if you want to. The aluminum does a better job at dissipating heat, but generally they kind of feel about the same thickness, and there's not a huge difference there. The 17 Pro Max is slightly thicker, but it's not that noticeable because it's only 0.5 millimeters, not even a full millimeter thicker. So it's not super noticeable, and both of them are IP68, so both of them just feel like tank of a Max phone to use. So let's talk about the displays. These are essentially the same panel with a couple minor differences. The iPhone 17 Pro Max is the same 6.9, but it does get brighter outdoors. They have the same usable nits of brightness, so day to day, the ones that you crank up like this, nobody will notice a difference. It's when you hit that sunlight that they definitely look a little bit different. But they have the same exact dynamic island, and the iPhone 17 Pro Max somehow has slightly less screen to body ratio than the iPhone 16 Pro Max, but that's definitely something a little bit different, but it's very hard to notice. 19:9 aspect ratio for both of these phones, so they're both pretty wide side to side, so that means that while you can display a lot of content on both of these, the reach side to side with your thumb is rather wide from each edge. So these can feel like you got to use two hands to use them majority of the time. What does help though is that because of that, you have a nice spacious keyboard for either of these phones. So when you are typing and things of that nature, it does seem like a super spacious, comfortable place to be typing on. So if you're looking up an application, for example, like let's look up Grok here, you'll see that was super easy to type out just due to that larger size there. So really, I would say at 460 ppi on both of them, you're really just getting slightly more protection with the Mohs hardness level just being a little bit better on this one, Ceramic Shield 2. There is an anti-reflective coating on here, so maybe slightly better with glare and stuff like that. But generally, I would say that the iPhone 17 Pro Max, the real upgrade is the brightness. That's it, really. That's the one that you're going to notice the most when you hit the outdoors, that it's even better than the 16 Pro Max outside. So I do like that. But the anti-reflective coating to me isn't as strong as the one I've seen on the Samsung S25 Ultra. But generally, I would say no. Upgrading to display, definitely not a necessary thing here. So when it comes to performance, I have done a proper speed test on these two phones, and basically the only difference really was the benchmark performance. We did see slightly better scores for the iPhone 17 Pro Max, but nothing that would make you feel like as though you're way behind. On the 16 Pro Max, you can see the differences are not substantial. In the multi-core, it is noticeable, but it's not substantial. In reality, I don't really feel any real difference in my day-to-day performance of the iPhone 17 Pro Max, but besides the heat. The heat is where I feel the difference. The iPhone 16 Pro Max is definitely not one of those phones that gets super hot, but it does get a bit warmer than the iPhone 17 Pro Max, but way better than the 15 Pro Max. So it was never really an issue, is what I'm saying, for the iPhone 16 Pro Max here. The only thing is that the 16 Pro Max got it just got better on the 17 Pro Max. So if heat has always been something that annoys you, yes, this is going to be a worthy upgrade to you. The dissipation of heat is just much better on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. But should you upgrade in terms of performance? I would say no, just mostly in terms of thermal efficiency, if that really matters to you. The A19 Pro, while is faster, it is clock speed a little bit higher. 6-core graphics on both of them. The average user is not going to notice any difference. They both still have 120 hertz displays. You do have 12 gigs of RAM. That is a nice thing for longevity's sake on the 17 Pro Max. But it's not like your 16 Pro Max is going to stop performing well just because this phone got 12. It's just not going to happen. I mean, an iPhone 13 Pro Max still performs pretty good, and that phone is several years old at this point. So I would say the RAM is useful for if you're going to keep the phone for another 6 years, but 8 gigs of RAM still going to be fine just due to the nature of iOS for several years to come still here on 60 Pro and Pro Maxes. So let's talk about the camera upgrades. So the main one that got upgraded for these is they're all now 48 megapixels on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. Most of the sensors are the same except for the periscope telephoto. So what that means is not only do you have more zooming than on the 16 Pro Max, which gave you 5 times and 25x, which I still think is plenty enough for most users. That's even more than enough for the majority of users. But if you want to go even further than that, you got 4 times and 8 times. And on this phone, you can go ahead and zoom in all the way up to 40x. So the zoom strength is the real upgrade here on the rear camera. For the front cameras though, that center stage camera allows for an ultra wide shot here on the front, which puts not only you and others in frame, but allows you to shoot in the portrait mode and get a wide shot without doing this all the time. So not only is this great for creators, it's also great for people that take family photos and things like that, and they don't have somebody to take a photo of them. That feature is pretty amazing. I would like to see other makers bring ultra wides to their front facing camera, not just that little thing where it backs out a little bit with the face, but the proper ultra wide that you see here with center stage on the front. So that was a really, really good upgrade, I think, and one I didn't think everybody was expecting. At the same time, you can do 4K 120 on both of these phones, and these phones both do support ProRes, but there's a few more Pro updates here, like ProRes RAW for the 17 Pro Max and Apple Log 2. So if you are doing those intense Pro workflows, every year the pros are actually adding Pro level features. But again, I go like this because you got to be Pro to actually do it, to actually get the benefits from that. Other than that, the 16 Pro Max is still a Pro phone in most respects, but I do like that upgrade to the front facing camera. It is pretty noticeable, and I think if you take a lot of selfies and videos on the front, I think it is worth upgrading. So battery life. I always thought the 16 Pro Max was already a great phone in battery, but this is the best battery life on an iPhone since the 13 Pro Max on the iPhone a 17 Pro Max. So the 17 Pro Max is giving you that 13 max level battery life and lasting anywhere between like an hour and a half to 2 hours better than the 16 Pro Max in day to day. They not only increased the size, but with the efficiency of the new chipset, the A19 Pro is an absolute efficiency monster. That phone, this chip in here, combined with iOS, combined with the bigger battery, especially on the eSIM model here in America, you went up nearly 400 milliamps. So your entire day, the phone just going to last longer than the 16 Pro Max, and that is a substantial change. So if you do want more longevity than you've ever had before, the iPhone 17 Pro Max is a 100% recommend, I would say, in battery. However, it's not like life changing because the iPhone 16 Pro Max was not a phone that's going to let you down and you're going to be super low battery every day. I don't ever think it was that type of phone, but it's not stacking up to this. This is a true power user beast over here on the left. And so I like this. This is my favorite upgrade about it. You get the thermals that keep this phone cool, but you also get that longevity in the battery life. This thing, I finished a days. I swear I finished a day on this phone with like 65%. It's insane. That means you could start another day and probably finish that day with like 10% if you're on the same usage. So the 17 Pro Max is a true 2-day phone for a lot of people, even people using it a little bit heavy. If you're not using it heavy at all, that thing could probably stretch in about 3 days if you're like that. Some people are going to comment and say, there's no way. Well, if you're on your phone a lot, no phone is going to last you days. But if you're using your phone like a regular day-to-day usage, you're just kind of like on and off of it. You're not on it all day. This is how I'm discussing the battery life. 17 Pro Max, a big upgrade there. So when it comes to the software here, we do have iOS 26 on both of them. And so coming from one to the other is going to feel essentially like the same exact experience. It's not going to feel like anything changed for you either way you go here. So this is not a reason to upgrade. 100% don't upgrade just because you're like, well, is 26 going to work better or something like that? No, this is essentially the same on both phones. You get the clear icons whether you're on here or here. Same exact liquid glass experience. So I would say absolutely don't upgrade just for software alone. The 16 Pro Max actually runs iOS 26 pretty smooth as well. So it's not like, it's older phone, it's not going to run it well. It does run it well. Some people say the battery takes a hit. That's only initially as the phone is indexing. Give it about a week or so of usage, or maybe even like 3 to 5 days. Let it adapt to your usage patterns, and it should work out the battery life for you. But yeah, software-wise, no real changes on either of them. Like I wouldn't upgrade for software unless you just want that extra year of update that you might get on the 17 Pro Max, but that's for extremely long-term users. Now, from an audio perspective, we are looking at a slightly louder phone here on the iPhone 17 Pro Max. They get a little bit louder on the left here. I noticed it's not anything substantial, but it was slightly noticeable for this phone on the left. So if you do want just a little bit more decibels, I found it about 2 decibels louder when testing. So nothing substantial, but definitely a little bit different. So if you do want that, then that's something to keep in mind. Speakerphones, that would make speakerphone calls sound slightly louder for the iPhone 17 Pro Max. But I don't know that at 2 decibels you might even notice any change. So it's pretty small, but it's something to mention. I will say though that if you're buying the 17 Pro Max, I found it to have better reception strength, less of an issue with network performance. Not that these 16 Pro Max had an issue. I just find this one to be a bit better. It also connects faster via Bluetooth 6.0 versus 5.3. If you don't need to know all the tech jargon specs, it's basically a newer standard, faster connections to the iPhone 17 Pro Max. But they're still reliable on Bluetooth 5.3 on the right. So again, you might not notice it, but when you're popping the AirPods in really quickly, you're going to be a little bit more reliable performing on the left. So let me give you my final thoughts. Price to value ratio. Of course, pricing is now cheaper on a 16 Pro Max. Does the 17 Pro Max do enough to warrant an upgrade from just last year's phone? And while a lot of people say nobody upgrades from last year's phone, you'd be surprised. Some people do they get a new phone every year. They dump last year's phone for the new one. I think they did enough to make it even an upgrade over this phone. Here is why. Longer battery life, that's the main thing a lot of people like about Max phones. Better cameras, another thing people love about Max phones, and a brighter screen. All three of the big hitters are definitely improved on the 17 Pro Max. Now, by how much of an improvement, that's really up to you to decide. Personally, I don't think they're game-changing improvements. If I was using a 16 Pro Max, I would probably just wait for the next big upgrade on this one. But they're enough that if you did upgrade, you're not going to be disappointed. You're just not going to be blown away. You're just going to be like, this is a good phone. I was already using something very similar, but I like that this phone stays cooler to the touch. I like that this phone lasts longer. And I like the camera improvements, especially on the front and the zoom. So I think it does enough even for last year's. But I still am more excited to see the folding phone coming soon. Let me know your thoughts on these two down below. Are you keeping your 16 Pro Max? Are you on the fence? Are you deciding to upgrade? Are you just going to wait a little while and see if you want to upgrade later? Let us know your thoughts down below in the comment section of this video. If you found it helpful, entertaining, informing, click the like button for me. Subscribe for more, and I'll catch you on the next episode. Nick here. Be sure to be well, and peace.